Hello, hello, hello. Welcome one and all. The latest fruit that I'm adding to my shuffle. Soon we'll have all the fruits. We'll finally gather all the information. We'll finally have it all. We'll look at it all of it and we're like, all right, finally, we figured out who the frick we are. Right? Is that the plan? We'll never have it all. We are entering a bold new era. A place that I know virtually nothing about. Being as it's from the opposite side of this country. This land where we pretend to be free. That's right. We're free range. Free range chickens. And you know what? Maybe our meat does taste better than them caged birds, but still, I want freedom. And that's what you should want. And in the name of freedom, and in the name of curiosity, we're gonna check out a new place. Yes, I've got some new Starford tours. Yes, I've also got some new Antarctica stuff. Yeah, I've got some improv stuff. Yeah, I've got some Connecticut stuff. Yeah, I've got some more California County stuff. Yeah, I tried Pennsylvania Historic District. All this stuff I'm still working on, okay? Yeah. And I can't wait. I really can't. I'm excited. I like this. Look at all these buildings. It's like, long-winded stories about a guy digging a ditch for 30 friggin' years. Peter, Jimmy, fucking start it over. I don't care, Jim, start it over. Bullshit. Don't argue. It's your butt. It's your turn, by the way. I happened to see someone back in the day put a comment out there that would mean a lot to them if I did West Virginia. I think it slipped my mind. Doing it for you, rando. I am doing it for you. Oh my God, what have I done? What we've got here is the Old Stone Church. That's right, that's its name. It's the Presbyterian Church in Lewisburg, known as the Old Stone Church. The finest and largest church in West Virginia that has come doth from pioneer days and has been in continuous use until the present day, which at the time was, 1961 perhaps? This Reverend John Lebeau, ordained by Old Hanover Presbyterian, 1782, was sent here as its first pastor, installed in the original church at this place, a cabin of unhewn logs with a puncheon floor, puncheon seats, clapboard roof, 2 small windows, and many rats. And it was designed to let in some light, but principally as a guard against, the Indians. That's right. Feather not dot. You know the ones. The ones that aren't from India? Those ones. The hell just happened, Jimmy? You see, in 1792, Lewisburg was formally laid out and building laws were enacted. There was a bunch of pioneer pride which prompted a finer church building. Just trying to keep with the alliteration. The settlers were intent upon erecting a church of some splendor, and regardless of the handicap of primitive tools and crude materials from the wilderness, this they did. Allegedly. Although the church was erected in newly settled land where building utility rather than architectural beauty was desired, there's something intangibly fine about the old church, wouldn't you agree? Which is apparent, even in our present day, of more expensive churches. Ooh, you must have good jobs to pay for those type of churches. It's been called a little classic of early pioneer architecture. It is built of native stone, and tradition tells us that the sand used in the building was quarried by the women of the congregation from the Greenbrier River 4 miles away, as the men apparently slept next to their fishing rods. I added that part just to make the dude seem lazy because it's funny to beat up on people, right? They had sacks thrown... sacks, I said. A-C-K, perverts. They had sacks thrown across their, saddles. Sorry, I realized it was too loud. The lime for the mortar was burned from native stone, slacked and buried to cool. It's very hard and very durable to the present day. By it meaning the stone, of course. The first pastors, no one cares. Now, churches all over this territory sprung up, and Old Stone became the direct dominating force in the cultural life of this community. Many thousands have worshipped here in this old church, including Lillard Fillmore, Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, John Tyler, John Marshall, and a whole host of other hypocrites. Patrick Henry purported to have visited the spot during the late 18th and 19th century, although some people claim he visited in the 20th century. I find that unlikely, unless we're talking about Patrick McHenry, the current interim acting Speaker of the House. That should show you how relevant and up-to-date my current political knowledge is. I read the newspaper once. Today. Actually, I don't read the newspaper. I read the tea leaves. Man, I'm bad at it. I'll get around to it. There's a lot going on in my life, as I'm sure there is with yours, but man, really, if you knew, you'd probably be like, what the f are you doing making videos right now, bro? You need to be dealing with that. And you know what? That's probably good advice that I'm not going to take, because this is important to me as well. Getting the word out there that it's okay to question things. You should question things. Answers to the questions are going to take all of us to still not figure out. Does that make sense? Moving on from the old stone church, our first in West Virginia, kind of set the tone. We're going to go over here to the Greenbrier County Courthouse, where we are told virtually nothing about the old boy, other than 2 stories with a mezzanine, monumental Tuscan portico, open octagonal domed cupola, built by Dunn, the builder. And it was the location of the sessions of the Virginia State Supreme Court of Appeals, one of the state's 2 remaining antebellum courthouses of Jeffersonian inspiration, still in use. I noticed that they said 2 stories, but I also noticed a few stories down here. So what gives? Are you guys, do you think I'm stupid or what? I mean, this is a weird way to start off, West Virginia, just calling me names like that. You don't know me. But in any case, unnecessary architecture, unless, of course, it serves a purpose. If someone wants to volunteer, anyone in the class want to tell us what that could be for? No? Moving on, then. The dirt field across the street, from the looks of things, may or may not be true, I don't know, but I guess our focus isn't on the dirt, it's the Renick house. Now, what we're told about this is after purchasing the cave farm from Robert McClanahan, of which and from whom I don't know what are. I worded that funny, but you know what I meant. William Rennick built the stone house on the property about 1795, the same year in which the old stone church, which we just visited, was constructed. He was a pioneer who amassed great wealth in the region as a farmer and a landowner. Okay. This comes from an article in the Alderson Times. And I'll put the link in the show notes below. Just kidding. I just wanted to say that. They say there was a brick addition built against the west wall. It's designed as if it were a separate home. They say what the house may lack in size, it makes up for in ornament. They say the inside is crowded with boldly proportioned woodwork. That's what they say. They say the corner stairway continues up to the attic, and that the first and second floor mantels have been marbleized. Calvin B. Rennick was a noted Civil War figure. He was born here, and this was subsequently the social center of Greenbrier Valley during the Civil War. I doubt it remains today based on its rather haphazard appearance. And that looks like it was part of something else as well at one point, but we're not going to talk about that. Let's talk about this. Wow, look at that sagging floor. Look at that dead dog. And it's a shame that this one looks like it's falling down, because it looks rather fantastical to me. There's a window door. Perhaps I should have saved my judgment. What are those? Turnips? No, thank you. A stunner, an old world stunner. How so cool to have this around. It's too bad it's fallen into disrepair. And just look at the foundational issues here. Even in West Virginia, folks. Even in West Virginia. Are you surprised by now? I'm not surprised at all. This is the Church of the Incarnation, which is where the phrase "what incarnation" came from. No, I'm just kidding. This is built in 1883. It was moved this century and placed on a concrete block basement story. At some point. No telling when, but what a world beauty. The trim. And something like this looks to me like it was inspired by an old world building, but maybe not of the old world. You know what I'm saying? And this one here, this is great. Refreshing old sights to see here. The Edgar House, 2-story, with the usual tower, conical roof, built 1832, and slightly altered in 1870 when they added the tower porches. This is an impressive Queen Anne, as you can see for your very own self. You don't even need me to say that, but say it I did. This one here, I don't have any information about, so I'm afraid I can do nothing but recklessly speculate. Part of the original viaduct, Preston County. Well, the original bridge was designed by Albert Fink, replaced by a wrought iron trestle in 1887, and then replaced by a masonry arch bridge in 1905, of which you can see some of the cast concrete parts here. And look, the rebar. It's a rebar structure. This is the old courthouse on George and Washington streets. That's right, on the corners of George and Washington. It keeps it super old school around there. Built in 1801, builder unknown. This is the place of the trial of John Brown and William Buzzard. Partially destroyed in the Civil War. A bit fancy for this early age 1801, eh? But nothing's too fancy for early Americans. Even if they didn't know how to build it, they'd sort of built it anyway because they just did. And you should also believe that because it's science somehow. And you must be some sort of a science disbeliever, a misinformer. Snow would be very disappointed in you. And he dedicates his song to the opposite of you. So enjoy that, because I know I will. Look at that little chandelier. Oh, it be like that, huh? Another shacking picture. This here is the Harewood in Charlestown. Built of native limestone, one of the earliest houses in the Shenandoah Valley, constructed of this material. The windowsills are of black walnut, which see abundant usage in the locality at the time. The walls of one room are entirely paneled, an elaborate stairway with scrolled study. Lawrence Washington, from 1743 to 1750, purchased tracts of land from Lord Fairfax in what is now Jefferson County. Though he never lived on these lands, he was instrumental in the moving into this section various members of the Washington family, and the illustrious brother George Washington. Dolly Payne Madison was remarried to James Madison here, who became president of the United States in 1794. Lord Philippe, who later became king of France, while in exile from his country, spent some time in Harewood, and his wife's name was Amélie, whom the town of Amélie-les-Bains was named after, and she is the one I just did the star for about. Funny how things all slide together sometimes, you know? Of course, this all came from a scrapbook belonging to Jefferson County. What, we trust in scrapbooks now as our fucking official sources or what? Because nobody read my scrapbook and asked me what happened by history. And that shit's got some comedy gold in it. This was called a happy retreat. Seriously, not even a joke. It's called a happy retreat. Matter of fact, I'd be more than happy. Something tells me this isn't exactly what the architect. That's the old hexagonal outhouse. Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't mind an hexagonal outhouse, but this one's a bit out of order. Here we reach our little, what's becoming rather customary, patch of properties in which there are no reference numbers. So it's a mystery. This one looking a bit I don't know, modified, like, say, this door, I don't know what's going on here, but, somebody comes out that door, they're in for a real doozy. We're gonna add this little porch on here, we're gonna put a door here. Jimmy, we got some bums living on the side of the house, I need you to go take care of them. This might be that same structure. Who knows? Hard to tell. Hard to tell what's out the old, column numbers, isn't it? Why, back in my day, this looks like a little jellyfish guy floating around. It's not, though. Ah, the old hidden handyman. Right. Look at his cheeks, looks like they have color on them. Well, if you had that haircut, you'd be blushing too. And that figure as well. Do you think he's really that pear-shaped, or do you think it's more of a I have a cape on thing? Don't forget your teapot. Interesting little layout. Almost like a stage. Strange stage. Put the furnace right in front of the fireplace. Could find these a little better, no? Oh, what do I know? Oh, yeah. You mean like this? Actually, you know what it looks like? It looks like a guy. He's getting ready to bite down on a straw. He's like, cola. Nah. This guy's over here like, ooh. Yeah, this old fixer-upper. Whoa, that's certainly, yeah, that looks exactly like they designed it. Mudfly, that's stupid. You guys are dabbling in conspiracy. Look how many bricks it would take even to build this build. It's just so many. That is a wide chimney. Yes, sir. That's all the commentary I got on that beautiful old Victorian whamma jambo. Just from, like, amazing house to sort of rugged barn type thing that maybe, hopefully, no one lives in. I'll probably do. We must be in the outskirts of, Scotland, right? No? West Virginia, you say? Well, pardon my ignorance, but, you know, ruins is ruins, and I wish I could tell you what this is. I really do, but I reckon I can't if they don't include the numbers. It's a real shame. Look at that mansion. Yeesh. What a cool old house. And of course, the beautiful, intricate woodwork that, you know, they knew how to do then, and we just don't understand today. They must have had help from aliens. And this is worthless. Should just be changed to looking at pictures, making dumb comments. Gorgeous old porch here, and I wish that I could expound more on the details of these properties. The deets, that's what we want, is the deets. From rustic to rusticer to even rusticest. Oh, damn. Kool-Aid Man must have been through here. Oh, yeah. Rural settings we're seeing here, and this is quite the batch of properties here. Here we go. This here is allegedly John Brown's Fort at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Made from brick walls. Now, this was originally the fire engine house, which stood in the United States Armory enclosure. Who built it? Is that funny? But the United States built it, the government, and it was the scene of John Brown's raid, which was the prelude to what we're told was the Civil War. It was considered to be such great historic value that it was moved to Chicago from West Virginia in 1892 and exhibited at the World's Columbian Exposition. Moved to Chicago from West Virginia in 1892. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Well, they took it apart brick by brick. Why don't they just rebuild it? It was purchased from its owners in 1895 and moved back to Jefferson County, where it was re-erected about 2 miles from Harper Ferry in the Shenandoah River. I call BS. This site was somewhat inaccessible, and in 1910, the building was removed again to this campus of Storer College in Harper's Ferry, where it houses a library and small museum collection. What a joke. It was built in 1848, we're told, and the story goes that in 1859, Mr. John Brown, the abolitionist, and his followers sought refuge in the building, and they surrendered to Robert E. Lee and a company of Marines after his unsuccessful attempt to capture the arsenal. Age of the various parts of the building can therefore not be fired. Gee, you think so? Now, it's not definitely known, but it may have been designed by Major Symington, superintendent of the armory. No plans have been discovered, but the specifications and estimates are found in Harper's Ferry National Monument. Because the army was destroyed during the Civil War and not reactivated following that war. Wait, what? Because the army was destroyed and not reactivated, the building was acquired by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, then purchased and displayed at the World's Colonial Expo. So wait, it was destroyed during the Civil War, not reactivated, then how was it purchased and rebuilt? Makes no sense. So Brown was captured somewhere here. There you go. There's your little repurposed. We're gonna call it an obelisk. They say that the cupola was halved, moved, and reassembled at least once. Well, duh. You already told us that. Here it is, showcasing the freshly paved streets. Yeah, there we go again. This time we're building up the foundation. I mean, that can't be the same building, right? Or maybe it is, and they just have to justify the pictures being so different. They claim that they rebuilt it. I mean, what, are you gonna move the basement too? All these pictures look like they're different eras. Pills for torrid liver? Jesus. And what's this here? Now here it is on vacation. This house just knows how to get around, doesn't it? What a weird story. Like, if you're gonna build 5,000 buildings for these world expositions, why move one? Why not just build a replica of it and knock it down like you did so many other times? I'm suspicious about that. Now I'm struggling to find out what's the importance about this barn here. You know, so far, no fireplaces with little friends here. Oh, this one's got some, like, dancing ponies inside. Unicorns or whatever. All this mythical fantasy creatures back then. It's weird how everywhere in every country the same sort of mythological creatures, like, so bizarre. Especially because we're all so different, right? Like, we've nothing in common ever. Woo! Like, where's the information? Oh, sorry, buddy. Everywhere we go, we got the same earth flow, the same stucco, the same foundation, yo. Everywhere you look, you got a home made of brick. You got a concrete bunker built up here, just so you can reach the doorway. Sorry that these aren't more interesting because I don't have any information to go. Whoa. Hello. Wait a second, look at this thing. What is that? I mean, I know what it is, but that one translucent? Am I just tripping? Which, huh? Is the old symbol for radiation. Gee, that's weird. You know, it seems kind of crazy to have this burning hot cast iron thing here. If you have children, I mean, you're just waiting to get your freaking face burnt. You know, you gotta be careful when you're entering West Virginia into a Google search. You misspell that, miss a couple letters, and it takes you down a strange slope. You know what I'm saying? Yeesh. Look at these basement windows. What do you think they mean? Why are they so different from up here, huh? Why you gotta build stairs to reach to the patio? You know, I mean, we point this out everywhere we go, but I'm never gonna stop. It's like an answer. Why? I mean, in West Virginia, they claim that the first brick street ever in the world was built here in the 1870s. Now, do you buy that? Because I sure as hell do not. What's going on here? This looks like a three-eyed crazy monster, just like, quite the motley affair here. Difficult to find a architectural theme of consistency. Those boarded up windows, and this looks like it was added on later. Kind of a beat down little place here, wherever we're at. And it's hard to say. That looks cozy. Yeah, actually kind of does. Not so much. Yeah. That's one way to do it. Well, what are we to think? What are we to think? And we got no info. Whoa, look at that fatty chimney. A door to nowhere. Or what was nowhere. Finally, one that looks kind of lived in. So I guess maybe we're getting back to some sort of civilization. Oh, well, this here is the Peter Burr House. One of the oldest buildings in the state, we're told. Very rare example of early homestead, which all other examples are of stone rather than wood. Allegedly 1751, but we're told, and the present condition is rather poor, as can kind of be expected. Oh, look at that. And lurking underneath, the old brick. I was promised a wooden ancient structure. They lied to me. Man, what is going on here? We just building it out of whatever? What have we got? Just stacking it up? Now, the clarity of this photography still blows my mind. Ugh. Yeah, I don't think I'd go inside this mug. This one just looks like a little tired, don't you think, pal? What? Ooh. It's the ghost. Wait, come back. No, thank you. Peter Burr, by the way, being a cousin of Aaron Burr. Well, now I found my way around it. This is Jacob Morgan House. Estate granted to Richard A.P. Morgan by Lord Fairfax. Built in 1831. It's a 2.5-story plaster over native limestone, brick chimneys, and it is, we are told, the oldest house in Shepherdstown. That's right. Soak it in. A very fine, house to just throw up in the 1830s, for sure. Not saying it's impossible, just saying it's a remarkable achievement that I feel is being downplayed. Consistent level. This somehow is part of it, but I can't really tell. It looks rather different. Look at the brickwork. Just look at that brickwork and the bell on the top. What's going on there? Just look at that primitive freaking telephone pole. Here we have the Thompson house. Not just any Thompson, this is the Dr. Thompson. The land was originally granted to Throckmorton. Just saying, he wanted his name on there because it's fun to say. Originally built in 1750? 1750, damn. Interesting outbuildings, we're told. Especially the stone office with its gable roof and chimney. This one, stone chimney. Although, it seems like it would be describing the last one. That's way more interesting. So which is it? Hell, I don't know. Who the fuck figured anything out of this damn state? I thought y'all gonna be less confusing than Pennsylvania. This is a place called Wheatland, Berryville Pike, which sounds like a very friendly place indeed. As long as Barry Nadler doesn't live there. That guy sucks. Date of erection of earliest parts unknown. Addition made by George Turner in 1858. It is a 2.5-story, as you expected, with interesting stone outbuilding, we are told. We look at interesting outbuilding, but turn out they're not very interesting at all, which make me feel with anger and outrage. Therefore, Bitterudo by nunchuckadudu. Well, those are supposed to be nunchucks. He grits teeth and make a Chinaman very angry. Now, you will die. Well, Wheatland is much more hostile to the average surveyor than I initially had guessulated. But don't take my word for it. This one was the Tremel Hollis house, built in 1799 by Mr. Wilson, whose manager, Hollis, the grandfather of the present owner, later became the owner. It's a transitional type of house. Original part and second part, 2-story brick. Later addition, 2.5-story. Closed stairs and original parts, an open stair and latest. House is in excellent condition. This, of course, being the 1930s. Little outbuildings all look like they just were on the barely receiving end of this mud flood thing. This is the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in Martinsburg. The West Roundhouse is a building in this former engine and machine shop complex here. We're told erected by the B&O in Martinsburg in 1849, destroyed by those dastardly Confederate troops in 1861. Still, the shops exist from 1866 and later. The West Roundhouse is one of 2 identical buildings used for running repairs to locomotives. It is a 16-sided brick wall polygon covered by a bell-shaped roof over the locomotive turntable with 16 wedge-shaped work bays radiating from the turntable. What makes this unique and architecturally distinctive is its total cast-iron frame of octagonal columns, struts, beams, all the other things I'm not showing you. One of the most significant cast-iron buildings in the United States. And I don't understand, if it was burnt down, then why do we have it today? I mean, if it was rebuilt, there's certainly no talk of it. And what is all this? Looking like an old star fort in many ways. Like just doorways nestled in old ruins here? Just doorways hidden here? What is this here? Because I see something distinctively Stafford about it. Matter of fact, we're gonna go look at it right now. Ignore those lines drawn from the Pentagon. That's for another time. Well, on our approach here to Martinsburg, I notice a few things right away. A telltale track with the oval here. Which means, oh, really? Is it like France, huh? You're just gonna bulldoze the Stafford, eh? Wow, what if that's the truth? Here's the old track, or the old airport, whatever they turned it into. Curious. Gee, guys, well, you did a great job with the landscaping. It's just beautiful. Little overboard, but here's the train track, and we're gonna do like them songs tell you. Gonna take that train right there to the station, okay? Which would be here-ish. I'll bet you it was right here. I'll just bet you. I was wrong. Aha! But where's those walls in relation to this? Showing those stone walls. Just beyond the riverbed. Aha. I might have known. It is where they're doing the construction. You explained that. Doorways in the friggin' wall. Pardon me, sir. Wow. He knew what was up. What the fuck is that? And why don't we know more about that? That is insane. They're mammoth fucking doorways. Look how huge that is. And here we're We're, mining the top of it? What a disgrace. If I didn't know any better, I would say just like in France that we saw in that past video, these people are mining. They are cutting the top off of these Starford-like places. What the fuck is that? Man, people better wake up before this stuff's gone. Hopefully they preserve at least this little bit. But my guess would be, I'm glad for this little dorky guy that took this. What a hero. Crazy. No telling where this part went. These structures in this area here, I dove in a little bit more, is that since the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Company felt that the facilities at Sandy Hook, Maryland were inadequate, in 1849, $35,000 was spent for construction of various structures at Martinsburg to replace Sandy Hook. Besides the central engine station, brick engine house with a turntable in front, brick engine shop, engine sheds, coal sheds, depositories for wood. In 1852, large expenditures were deemed necessary for the acquisition of additional grounds to conduct shops with which the company required for its prospective wants. Spent $12 million, which in 1856 is an ungodly amount of money, to widen the depot grounds for the new engine house. However, the Civil War interrupted plans to improve the facilities. This city was in a key location, we're told, and strategically important to the armies of both the North and the South, since a target for severe destruction by the Confederates in an attempt to cut off an important artery of federal supply. Confederate troops removed all stationary machinery, tools, materials, and they eventually had to replace a 50-foot turntable which the troops carried off. The greatest destruction occurred on October 19th, 1862, which included the polygonal engine house, large machine hot shops, warehouse, telegraph office, company hotel, dining house, coal bins, sand houses, blah, 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 water mechanic house, pumping engine for a water station, all allegedly destroyed, so they rebuilt it out of brick. That same year, the Croson Hotel property was purchased and extensive additions were made, including the large stone warehouse, 2 large brick sand houses, an oil house, the foundation of the second roundhouse was built, the new engine house. Few groups of buildings like this have survived for over 100 years. Gee, I wonder why. Survival in this case is due to preservation by default, which means the structures have served some useful purpose to the railroad since the time of their construction, right? Meaning they weren't wantonly destroyed. The B&O Railroad was at the forefront in the field of railroad engineering. It invented bridging systems, mechanical devices, and the type of structure these functions generated were unique. The roundhouse was developed for the steam engine. Of note is the large overhead volume, shaped to funnel the smoke and engine fumes away from the work area, like one gigantic chimney. By understanding the functions, one can appreciate the structures designed to support these tremendous volumes, especially when it was realized that they were constructed during a time when buildings of this type had no precedent, and the engineering techniques of iron structures had just recently been evaluated. And I don't see very many photographs of these buildings. A handful along this culvert, which we're told pretty much nothing about, at least as of yet. This is the Union House. That's all we're told about it. This is the home of David Hunter Strother. General Strother, the famous author who wrote under the name Port Cran, wrote quite a number of books and contributed for many years to Harper's Weekly and Harper's Monthly. Washington Irving and other noted American authors were frequent guests at this home prior to the Civil War. This is what's known as the Monument Place. Shepherd Mansion, or Shepherd Hall, also colloquially known as, built by Colonel Moses Shepherd at the site of Fort Shepherd, where he had spent his early life as a shepherd. Now, his father having built Fort Shepherd for the protection of the people of the surrounding neighborhood 7 years prior to the destruction and an Indian uprising incited by the British. The house was later called Monument Place due to the monument erected to Henry Clay, whose influence caused the National Road to pass through the Shepherd estate. It's built in the Georgian manner. The front doorway is an especially fine example of workmanship. Colonel Shepherd built many miles of the National Road as well as several of the bridges, thus adding to his wealth and fame, as this was one of the great highways before the railroads were extended. Most of the great men of the period passed over it. Jackson, Harrison, Clay, Polk, Taylor, Denton, and many others made a point of stopping at the mansion. Lafayette, Madison, and many others were entertained there, and many political caucuses were held in the drawing rooms. Colonel Shepherd, accompanied by Mrs. Shepherd, spent many winters in Washington, attending Congress and settling claims in connection with the National Road. The monument to Henry Clay was erected on the lawn. It is of freestone, 20 feet high, surmounted by a picture of the figure of the Goddess of Liberty. There were originally inscriptions on all 4 sides. On one side was the following: "Time will bring over every amelioration and refinement most gratifying to mass rational men. The humblest flower freely plucked under the shelter of the tree or liberty is more to be desired than all the trappings of royalty. 44th year of American independence. Anno Domini 1820. Alexander Ramsey executed the monument. Across the lawn from the monument is an old sundial, erected the same year. Oh, really? And in the vicinity is an old church.
You don't say. And in the churchyard is the Shepherd Monument, erected to Colonel and Mrs. Shepherd. Church is of stone, it is of 1 story high, and it is in good condition. Shepherd had procured the ground from the government through his father and Alonzo Loring, who bought it from the estate of Mrs. Druger, who was formerly Mrs. Shepherd. That's not confusing. Monument Place came into the possession of Mrs. Lucy Loring, Milton, through inheritance from her father, and is now passed to the Masonic Order to be preserved for all time. Yes, looking very reasonable. That's something they would have built back then. Interestingly enough, this comes from the historical magazine, A Brief History of Osiris Temple's Home, and it actually gives this address. Osiris Temple, huh? Sounds pretty pagan to me. This old beauty is the Edgar Wells house. He was a local builder architect who erected this 2-family structure. He was born in 1850, studied at Bethany College, took a 6-month training program in drawing, and worked for 3 years with his carpenter father. Then he joined up with a man, and he did things like stair building, and he worked as a journeyman, and he gave much study during leisure hours to architecture, and his skill as an architect brought him much renown, and he was compelled to open an office and employ assistants. And he died in an accident on the Ohio River. The Wheeling Daily Intelligence described the accident and the death of Mr. E.W. Wells of the city by drowning yesterday. The city not only loses a valued citizen, a competent architect, but a man who is a credit to any community for uprightness and generous impulses. It is true that we are here today and absent tomorrow, but when a man of Mr. Wells' position is taken from the full flush of his life and a future of usefulness in the twinkling of an eye, the shock is greater on account of its being unexpected. They claim it was designed to be one house, but it appears from the plan that the house is always in 2 parts, each side basically the same. Each section has a basement, but it is inaccessible. This little beauty is the Nancy Moore house. As you can tell, it is a small, modest structure. There is apparently no information on Nancy Moore that's available today. However, 2 subsequent owners were considered to be worthy subjects for Wheeling's biographers. John Strohline bought the house from Nancy Moore, and the gentleman was born in 1830, migrated to the United States, settled in Wheeling. 53, worked a number of jobs before engaging in the insurance business, worked for the German insurance company for 4 years, and then in 1874, he joined a business with another man in manufacturing steel at Martin's Ferry, served that for 2 years as its secretary, and when the business failed, he joined the German Bank of Wheeling as a bookkeeper. From there, he bounces to the Franklin Insurance Company, so connecting all deep state dots here. Eventually working as secretary for the Jefferson Insurance Company, prominent among those citizens of Wheeling, we're told. That Conrad Schramba then purchased the Nancy Moore house in 1884. He was born in Germany. In 1831, he learned the trade of a tailor before immigrating to the United States, settling in Wheeling, operating a tailoring establishment. He opened his own business on Main Street and operated alone until his son joined him. He came to this country quite poor, except in the possession of a well-learned trade and genius and capacity for work, and by continued application he has so well succeeded, he is now well known as a business and one of the substantial and influential men of Wheeling. So there you have 2 random anecdotes about people who just happen to live in this little historic house built for someone named Nancy Moore that no one knows anything about. You see, you can move here from another country and just become prominent in no time. You getting the message here? Huh? Or do I gotta read those 2 stories about 2 random people for you to realize the American dream is real? And you guys just shut your mouth. I'll take random propaganda for 500, Jimmy. This is the Holiday Schaefer house. She's a real looker. Looker, I said, with an L. Built in 1868. The surveyor writes it's not possible to see the rear apartment or the rooms upstairs. Not sure why. John Holliday moved to Wheeling in 1845, running a lumber business for several years before taking over a planing mill, and they all burned in 1861. By 1870, Mr. Holliday erected a new planing mill. Take that, old planing mill. At this time, he took his son into partnership with him. Their firm, J.A. Holliday and Son, engaged 20 men. Their business increased so much, in 9 years they needed 70 men. Now, the interior of this house abounds in delicately crafted woodworking of East Lake character, although no mention of their skills in this. It was clear that their associations via wood and construction made the Hollidays very much aware and appreciative of wood detailing. We just know it. Just look at that banister. This is the Henry Schmolbach house. This man, Mr. Henry Schmolbach, was a leading Wheeling industrialist and president of Schmolbach Brewing Company. Born in Germany in 1844, came to the United States and settled in Wheeling in 1852 with his uncle George Feller. who was a good feller, we're told. Not that all fellers is good feller. This Mr. Feller drops out of the story after operating a wholesale liquor business for 4 years. The Mr. Schmalbeck, the majority stockholder of Nail City Brewing Company, took possession of the property and incorporated it as the Schmalbeck Brewing Company. Improved, enlarged, new machinery installed, immediate increase in production to 50,000 barrels annually. And by 1890, the capacity was further increased to 200,000 barrels per year. Most popular product. Sold in West Virginia, Ohio, Maryland, and Pennsylvania in the 1880s. Active in steamboat enterprises, this gentleman was too, and at one time owned as many as 6 steamboats. He was affiliated with the stockholder and director with the Wheeling Iron and Nail Company, the Junction Iron and Nail Company, the Bob's Glass Works, and the German Bank. Active in civic affairs, worked as a barber and a president of the Board of Public Works. Served on the Board of Education. Wow, Mr. Schmalbeck, who knew that you were so talented in all things you touch? Sounds like we found one of our key players in this part of the area. Maybe multiple. They like highlighting them in these. Henry Schmalbeck, eh? I'll remember you. We aren't done with you, Mr. Schmalbeck. No, we are not. This is the Theodore Cleves house. The Cleves brothers, Theodore and Bernard, were partners in building and construction firm. Of course, the Cleves brothers. All brothers are into construction these days. After Thomas Cleves sold his house to Mr. Thomas King, he lived in this house and practiced medicine in the 2 front rooms. Today it stands vacant. Well, not vacant, because Dr. King continues to hold office hours here every day between 1 and 4, charging $2 and $3 for office visits and $3 for house calls. Many of his patients have received medical attention from him at the same office for over 30 years. Wow, this is in 1944. He's charging $1 visits. What the fuck did you boomers do to this country? On your watch. You guys better freaking fix it. Still though, lovely house, Mr. Cleves. Thanks for sharing. That's weird. Different building material down here than up here. I've never seen that before. Look at this face right here. I don't even have to draw it. It's just there. It's just disapproving of me. Ugh. Or it's just a big nose. Oh, there they are, all 3 of them lined up. A bunch of party poopers. Cool front door though. And this is the other brother's house, Bernard Cleves. He did the same thing his brother did, except for it says here, at first employed 8 men, and then now 33 men. That's an interesting little factoid. Only up to 33, right? There's this very vague writing here. Bernard Cleves began his career without capital and assistance from others, and his success has been achieved by his own efforts and talents for affairs. In 1891, the company was incorporated as the Cleves Craft Company. Bernard Cleves was president. Business is actively managed by the president and treasurer and is the oldest concern of the kind in the city. What business? Like what? Well, it's for 30 years. It's been the oldest concern of the kind in the city. Actively managed, you know. It sounds like a bunch of vague nonsense. They keep pushing these people, this like, see, he moved here from Germany. He got all this from nothing. Just work hard, you get one. It seems like a racket. A guy lived here who moved here, he had nothing, he worked really hard. You can do it. Knowing that half these stories are freaking fictions. They have to account for the building somehow, or come up with fake histories, why their family earned them, or whatever it is. And I'm sure some of them were real, but some of these are just preposterous. George Ackerman House, one of the most elegant and richly detailed houses on Chaplin Street. These qualifiers. Designed by Edgar Wells and for Dr. Gregor Ackerman in 1888, this house manifests a proliferation of architectural detail and elaborate decorative elements. They've affirmed the success and prominence of Dr. Ackerman and the Wheeling community. Well, Wheeling sounds like it's a real place. Golly boy howdy, Wheeling sounds like a place to go if you want to get rich. Or at least have doors like you're rich. Dr. Gregory Ackerman was born in Prussia in 1852. He graduated from medical school in Switzerland, came to the U.S. in 1880. He settled in Wheeling after marrying the daughter of a local man, very vague, and quickly became known as one of the prominent physicians of Wheeling. In a local biography, it was said of Ackerman that as a surgeon, he has few compeers in this region. Few compeers, huh? That's where that word comes from. And as a general practitioner, has the confidence of the community in a remarkable degree. He was a member of the Ohio Medical Society. He and his wife lived in the house designed for them by their neighbor, Edgar Wells, until their deaths. I should say that most of these histories are coming from this book called The History of the Upper Ohio Valley. The author is anonymous. And this is something I've learned that they used to do. They give out these towns would give out these written histories of the area. I've exchanged a couple of them back and forth regarding a couple areas in California with a YouTube user, D-Star, and some of these histories are pretty interesting. There's a good chance there was one at one point in the area wherever you're at if you're in the U.S. But there were also stories of people who had the government or the town sort of not only not print them, but sort of gather them, like recall them to make some corrections and then never sent them back out. I mean, That seems like something that served its purpose for the time being. Gives you a written, well, it says here in this book of the history, so it must be true. This could all just be an elaborate lie, which is what I think it is. I mean, come on, look at this. Something fishy about all this. Virginia appeared to be no different. This boy here is the Bruce family was long associated with Wheeling and lived in this classic Greek revival-style house for nearly 100 years. Noted for the unusual and graceful hanging staircase, which has no visible means of support and which may never see they let us inside. Architect unknown. This is an 8-room house. Mr. Henry Bruce began as a collector, according to the 1892 directory. A native son of Wheeling, Charles Henry was born at the family homestead on North Front Street in Wheeling, December 9, 1872. Son of Henry and Carolyn Berger Bruce. Berger and Bruce, hey, still maintain their home in this city where the father has long been a prominent businessman and influential citizen. Now, initially associated with the wholesale and retail harness business, Mr. Bruce, known as Hal, became an employee of Wheeling Electric Company. Since 1901, served as company cashier. Served a 2-year term as a member of the city council and a 2-year term as a president of the municipal water board. Water. He was also elected to a member of the city board of control and has since continued in tenure of this position, in which he has given excellent service in the furthering of progressive measures, various departments of municipal activity. The Dolan family, who live here now, Dolan is an accountant, and Mrs. Dolan is a member of the board of education. And there's that staircase they raved about. It's pretty awesome, actually. No visible means of support. I see that. Almost scary. Ooh, a haunted chandelier. Worked your way up to being a powerful member of the city control council, eh? Henry K. List house. This one is named. Built in 1858. A fine example of a house. That's what we're told. Let's talk about the people, though. Even though there's a building survey, we like to talk about the people. Henry K. List, prominent Wheeling businessman. Everyone's prominent, whose biographers chiefly associated with the city of Bank of Wheeling, of course. Now, someone, an anonymous person, wrote in the history of the Upper Ohio Valley book, page 589, they wrote, the bank, which may be quoted as among our most enterprising and stable fiduciary institutions, was originally established in 1871 as the City Bank, modifying its title to present designation in 1886. Thank you, Mr. List, for clearing that up. They say that somehow Mr. List owned a lot of property on the wide only as a wholesale grocer and somehow a banker. And he also has association with the pig and the iron and the wool industries. Wheeling's biographers were much more impressed by Mr. List's responsibilities as the president of the City Bank of Wheeling, which was a private banking firm in 1870. And Henry and Ambrose List became actively identified with the City Bank in 1885. Ambrose succeeded his father to the office of president of the bank. He also was the director of the La Belle Iron Works and was largely interested in real estate. So, you know, no houses they set aside are always owned by prominent people in the area who have way too much on their plate to manage. This seems humanly possible. This is what we're told is Main Street, the west side of Main Street.